Lady Chatterley's lover. Continuation with me, Morel Benard. Right, the last time I think I said something along the lines that it's amazing, said Connie, how different one feels when there's a really fresh, fine day. Usually one feels the very air is half dead. People are killing the very air. Those were the last words. Do you think people are doing it? He asked. I do. The steam of so much boredom and discontent and anger out of all the people just kills the vitality in the air. I'm sure of it. Perhaps some condition of the atmosphere lowers the vitality of the people, he said. No, it's man that poisons the universe, she asserted. Fouls his own nest, remarked Clifford. The chair puffed on, and the hazel copse catkins were hanging pale gold, and in sunny places the wood animates were wide open, as if exclaiming with the joy of life, just as good as in past days, when people could exclaim along with them. They had a faint scent of apple blossom. Connie gathered a few for Clifford. He took them and looked at them curiously. Thou still, unravished bride of quietness, he quoted. It seems to fit flowers so much better than Greek vases. Ravished is such a horrid word, she said. It's only people who ravish things. Oh, I don't know. Snails and things, he said. Even snails only eat them, and bees don't ravish. She was angry with him, turning everything into words. Violets were Juno's eyelids, and windflowers were on ravished brides. How she hated words, always coming between her and life. They did the ravishing, if anything did. Ready-made words and phrases sucking all the life sap out of living things. The walk with Clifford was not quite a success. Between him and Connie there was a tension that each pretended not to notice, but there it was. Suddenly, with all the force of her female instinct, she was shoving him off. She wanted to be clear of him, and especially of his consciousness, his words, his obsession with himself, his endless treadmill obsession with himself and his own words. The weather came raining again, but after a day or two she went out in the rain, and she went to the wood. And once there she went towards the hut. It was raining, but not so cold, and the wood felt so silent and remote, inaccessible in the dusk of rain. She came to the clearing. No one there. The hut was locked, but she sat on the log doorstep under the rustic porch and snuggled into her own warmth. So she sat, looking at the rain, listening to the many noiseless noises of it, and to the strange soughings of wind in upper branches when there seemed to be no wind. Old oak trees stood around, grey, powerful trunks, rain-blackened, round and vital, throwing off reckless limbs. The ground was fairly free of undergrowth. The anemones sprinkled. There was a bush or two, elder or guelder rose, and a purplish tangled bramble. The old russet of bracken almost vanished onto green anemone ruffs. Perhaps this was one of the unravished places. Unravished. The whole world was ravished. Some things can't be ravished. You can't ravish a tin of sardines, and so many women are like that, and men. But the earth. The rain was abating. It was hardly making darkness among the oaks anymore. Connie wanted to go, yet she sat on. She was getting cold. Yet the overwhelming inertia of her inner resentment kept her there, as if paralyzed. Ravished. How ravished one could be without ever being touched. Ravished by dead words become obscene, and dead ideas become obsessions. A wet brown dog came running and did not bark, lifting a wet feather of a tail. The man followed in a wet black oilskin jacket like a chauffeur, and face flushed a little. She felt him recoil in his quick walk when he saw her. She stood up in the handbreadth of dryness onto the rustic porch. He saluted without speaking, coming slowly near. She began to withdraw. "I'm just going," she said. "Was you waiting to get in?" he asked, looking at the hut, not at her. "No, I only sat a few minutes in the shelter," she said, with quiet dignity. He looked at her. She looked cold. "Sir Clifford hadn't got no other key then?" he asked. "No, but it doesn't matter. I can sit perfectly dry under this porch. Good afternoon." She hated the excess of vernacular in his speech. He watched her closely as she was moving away. Then he hitched up his jacket and put his hand in his breeches pocket, taking out the key of the hut. "Happen you better have this key, Anne. I mind fend for it, bods, some other road." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean as happen I'd find another piece, I do, pheasants, if you want to. You not want no messing about the time." She looked at him, getting his meaning through the fog of the dialect. "Why don't you speak ordinary English?" she said coldly. "Me? I doubt word ordinary." She was silent for a few moments in anger. "So if you want the key, you better tuck it, or happened I better give you tomorrow, and clear all the stuff first. Will that do for you?" She became more angry. "I didn't want your key," she said. "I don't want you to clear anything out at all. I don't in the least want to turn you out of your hut, thank you. I only wanted to be able to sit here sometimes like today, but I can't sit perfectly well onto the porch, so please say no more about it." He looked at her again with his wicked blue eyes. "Why," he began, in the broad, slow dialect, "your ladyship as welcome as Christmas here to this hut, and the key, and everything as is. Only this time or this year there's bods there set, and I get the pottering about and good bit seeing 'em. Winter time, I need hardly come nigh the place. But what with spring and Sir Clifford wanting to start the pheasants, and your ladyship not wanting me tinkering about when she was here all the time." She listened with a dim kind of amazement. "Why should I mind you being here?" she asked. He looked at her curiously. "To nuisance on me," he said briefly, but significantly. She flushed. "Very well," she said finally. "I won't trouble you, but I don't think I should have minded at all sitting and seeing you look after the birds. I should have liked it. But since you think it interferes with you, I won't disturb you. Don't be afraid. You are Sir Clifford's keeper, not mine." The phrase sounded queer. She didn't know why, but she let it pass. "Nay, your ladyship. It's your ladyship own hut. It's as your ladyship likes and pleases every time. You can turn me off at a week's notice. It's work only." "Only what?" she asked, baffled. He pushed back his hat in an odd comic way. Only it happened you'd like the place to yourself when you did come, and not me messing about. But why? She said, angry. Aren't you a civilized human being? Do you think I ought to be afraid of you? Why should I take any notice of you and your being here or not? Why is it important? He looked at her, all his face glimmering with wicked laughter. It's not, your ladyship. Not in the very least, he said. Well, why then? She asked. Shall I get your ladyship another key then? No, thank you. I don't want it. I'll get it anyhow. We'd best have 2 keys here then, please. And I consider you insolent, said Connie, with her colour up, panting a little. Nay, nay, he said quickly. Dunna hear that say. Nay, nay. I never meant nothing. I only thought as if you come here. I should clear out. It means a lot of work setting up somewhere else. But if your ladyship isn't going to take no notice of me, then it's a Clifford, hut, and everything it is as your ladyship likes. Everything is as your ladyship likes and pleases, barring you take no notice to me doing my bits of jobs. Have I got to do? Connie went away, completely bewildered. She was not sure whether she had been insulted and mortally offended or not. Perhaps the man really only meant what he said, that he thought she would expect him to keep away, as if she would dream of it, and as if he could possibly be so important, he and his stupid precepts. She went home in confusion, not knowing what she thought or felt. Connie was surprised at her own feeling of aversion from Clifford. What is more, she felt she had always really disliked him. Not hate, there was no passion in it, but a profound physical dislike. Almost, it seemed to her, she had married him because she disliked him in a secret, physical sort of way. But of course she had married him really because in a mental way he attracted her and excited her. He had seemed in some way her master, beyond her. Now the mental excitement had worn itself out and collapsed, and she was aware only of the physical aversion. It rose up in her from her depths, and she realized how it had been eating her life away. She felt weak and utterly forlorn. She wished some help would come from outside, but in the whole world there was no help. Society was terrible because it was insane. Civilized society is insane. Money and so-called love are its 2 great manias. Money, a long way first. The individual asserts himself in his disconnected insanity in these 2 modes, money and love. Look at Michael's. His life and activity were just insanity. His love was a sort of insanity. And Clifford the same. All that talk, all that writing, all that wild struggling to push himself forwards. It was just insanity. And it was getting worse. Really maniacal. Connie felt washed out with fear. But at least Clifford was shifting his grip from her onto Mrs. Bolton. He did not know it, like many insane people. His insanity might be measured by the things he was not aware of, the great desert tracks in his consciousness. Mrs. Bolton was admirable in many ways, but she had that queer sort of bossiness, endless assertion of her own will, which is one of the signs of insanity in modern woman. She thought she was utterly subservient and living for others. Clifford fascinated her because he always, or so often, frustrated her will, as if by a finer instinct. He had a finer, subtler will of self-assertion than herself. This was his charm for her. Perhaps that had been his charm too for Connie. "It's a lovely day today," Mrs. Bolton would say in a caressive, persuasive voice. "I should think you'd enjoy a little run in your chair today. The sun's just lovely." "Yes. Will you give me that book there, that yellow one? And I think I'll have those hyacinths taken out." "Why, they're so beautiful." She pronounced it with a Y sound. Beautiful. And the scent is simply gorgeous. "The scent is what I object to," he said. "It's a little funeral." "Do you think so?" she exclaimed in surprise, just a little offended, but impressed. And she carried the hyacinths out of the room, impressed by his higher facetiousness. "Shall I shave you this morning, or would you rather do it yourself?" Always the same soft, caressive, subservient, yet managing voice. "I don't know. Do you mind waiting a while? I'll ring when I'm ready." "Very good, Sir Clifford," she replied, so soft and submissive, withdrawing quietly, but every rebuff stored up new energy of will in her. When he rang after a time, she would appear at once, and then he would say, "I think I'd rather you shaved me this morning." Her heart gave a little thrill, and she replied with extra softness, "Very good, Sir Clifford." Please listen to the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. So listen to the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. This is Morel Benard saying see you soon. Listen to the next video, Lady Chatterley's Lover. And please subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.